Welcome to the Academic Language webinar series brought to you in collaboration with the Nebraska Department of Education, NEMTSS, and the Regional 11 Comprehensive Center. My name is Ann Hubble, and I am a Title III EL Specialist at NDE.
And my name is Brooke Gabers, and I'm the Region 3 Support Lead for Nebraska MTSS.
And my name is Jeanette King, and I'm the Nebraska Liaison for the Region 11 Comprehensive Center at McRail International.
This four-part series will cover 4 practical concepts that can be employed immediately at Tier 1 core to support the use of academic language. These concepts are essential for the success of multilingual learners, and they are good for all students. In this webinar, we will be addressing collaboration as part 2 of the series. This is a poster available as a PDF link below the video that outlines the 4 practical concepts. As you can see, we've identified a few key bullets that represent collaboration that we'll address later in the webinar. Before we continue, let's define academic language. According to Todd Finley, a professor of education at East Carolina University and former teacher, academic language is the verbal clothing we use in formal settings that supports students in becoming college, career, and community ready. There are 2 highlighted areas to consider: the language of instruction that is used across content areas, and the language of a specific discipline or content area. We also want to clarify language usage that you may hear throughout the webinar. The Nebraska Department of Education honors students' language abilities as an asset and values the many languages multilingual learners, MLs, bring to enrich classrooms in Nebraska. Using the term ML emphasizes the importance of respecting home language as students are simultaneously learning English in Nebraska schools. In addition to the term ML, English learner, EL, is the term used in federal and state policy, which is why you may hear the 2 used interchangeably. Throughout this webinar, we will define collaboration as a practical concept to enhance Tier 1 core and support the use of academic language, reflect on the importance of collaboration for all students, especially multilingual learners, identify current practices to enhance collaboration, and we will share collaboration strategies that you can employ at Tier 1 core immediately.
So first, let's address what it means to collaborate. To start, collaboration is considered a high-leverage practice by the Council for Exceptional Children, who say, when asked to define collaboration, a typical response is working together. Even deeper, though, collaboration is about how individuals share their work, and it's characterized by voluntariness, mutual goals, parity, shared responsibilities for critical decisions, joint accountability for outcomes, and shared resources. Throughout this webinar, we're going to be highlighting collaboration between a number of different parties, including students with their peers, their teachers, and the school, as well as teachers with their colleagues, families, caregivers, and the community. Now, we'll look at some examples and non-examples to provide further clarity. For one, when we're thinking about non-examples of collaboration, schedules that have a lack of common planning time or cause staff to plan and problem solve independently would be a barrier. Leadership styles and structures that don't have teaming structures that meet regularly, they don't have team members from a variety of backgrounds, or that make decisions from a top-down approach would be non-examples of collaboration. Minimizing student voice or failing to engage students in the educational process also hinders collaboration, both with their peers, with teachers, and their school. Similarly, not engaging families and caregivers as partners in their child's education and only communicating with stakeholders in a one-way or single direction would be non-examples. Finally, when the school is viewed as a standalone entity rather than a part of the community, it's difficult to foster the collaborative efforts that can lead to the improved use of academic language and ultimately improve student outcomes. In contrast, we've listed a few indicators of what collaboration looks like. We might anticipate to see schedules that prioritize and protect that common planning time, as well as opportunities to analyze data and make inquiry, strong teaming structures, a sense of shared leadership, Students who are engaged as stakeholders, working collaboratively with their peers and their teachers, regular two-way communication with stakeholders, as well as family, caregiver, and community partnerships. All of those would be indicators of collaboration. Ultimately, to achieve success by improving student outcomes through the increased use of academic language, we have to prioritize collaboration and believe that together, administrators, faculty, and students can accomplish great things. This is the power of collective efficacy.
Why does collaboration matter? Well, we know that research supports connections between collaboration and student outcomes. We wanted to provide you a few resources for your reference and some key takeaways that include increased student academic achievement and engagement, as well as better attendance and graduation rates. More specifically, we know that education happens within the community and benefits from trusting relationships. When educators collaborate, it benefits both the educators and their students. Education is a social process. Through the visible learning research, John Hattie has identified more than 320 factors that influence student achievement. He then set about calculating a score or effect size for each. The average effect size of these 320 factors was 0.4, which represents an average year's growth per year of schooling for a student. Any factor that has an effect size of above 0.4, indicated in green and blue bands and then the purple above, has a positive effect on student learning. Two elements related to collaboration had stronger effects than the 0.4 average. Collective teacher efficacy, the perception that educators have that they can successfully teach all learners, this benefits from collaboration, had an effect size of 1.35, more than 3 times the average. And use of the jigsaw method, in which students become experts in one aspect of a lesson and then share that expertise with their peers, that had an effect size of 1.2, again, 3 times the average. Other elements contributed to the 0.4 average, including cooperative learning and parental involvement. Co-teaching in this model has an effect that's not quite as strong as the average. We'll discuss this further in a bit, as co-teaching needs to be done intentionally and purposefully to impact learners. So now, how can I foster collaboration? Before we discuss the ways to foster collaboration, we have to acknowledge that education occurs within an ecosystem that places students at the center, first described by Bronfenbrenner. As we work our way out, we reach a layer that includes student peers, caregivers, teachers, family members, their home, and the school itself. All the components in this layer have direct contact with the child in their immediate environment. The next layer is composed of interactions that occur among the systems from the previous layer. For example, open communication between a child's parents and teachers provides consistency across both those environments. However, a conflict between these two systems, like parents and teachers blaming each other for a student's poor performance, creates tension that negatively impacts the child. Outside of that layer, we have a layer that includes things like mass media, local politics, industry, what happens at the caregivers' workplaces, and so forth. While these things do not directly interact with the child, they do influence all the other systems in a child's life. Moving outward, we have the system that includes socioeconomic status, culture, social norms, and political systems. This layer focuses on how cultural elements that are already established may affect a child's development. It's important to understand how beliefs about gender roles, individualism, family structures, and social issues establish norms and values that can permeate a child's life. Finally, the outside layer. That relates to the shifts and transitions over a child's lifetime. Recognizing the interactions among these various systems and acknowledging students at the center of this ecosystem is an integral first step in planning how to foster collaboration within your district.
Successful collaboration and partnerships also start with a shared vision for what those partnerships mean and authenticity to the work they hope to achieve together. It requires humility and seeing that both parties are mutually valuable and can benefit from one another. It requires a balance and recognizing that everyone brings something to the table. By elevating voices, both parties can feel valued. Ensuring that your school environments are both safe and supportive for students, staff, and families is foundational to fostering collaboration. It requires supporting the social, emotional, and behavioral development and well-being for students and adults. Those social, emotional, and behavioral learning, or SEBL skills, include things like being self-aware, managing and regulating one's own emotions, using critical thinking to problem solve, being able to build healthy relationships, and having pro-social behavior to show empathy to others. It's also important to build relational trust among these parties through inclusive approaches like affirming self-acceptance, showing up in the community, or getting vulnerable. Once trust is established, you can embrace other perspectives of your stakeholders and demonstrate that you value them by elevating their voices and acting on the feedback they give. While doing so, you will validate individuals' lived experiences, their culture, and their heritage. Through this, you can make sure that each individual feels valued and respected. Finally, you can support student and adult SEBL by creating and promoting engagement and wellness opportunities throughout the year, like hosting after-school student clubs, hosting family fun nights or family feeds, or creating a staff wellness room or calm down room that they can use when needed during breaks and planning periods.
Here are a few additional resources to support collaboration. The Nebraska Cafe is an engaging discussion-based webinar series focused on amplifying family engagement in schools throughout Nebraska. It provides educators and professionals who work in family engagement a platform to communicate, network, and learn from families and other professionals. The Family Leadership Institute, FLI, is a multifaceted educational program focused on providing multilingual families with the knowledge, tools, and inspiration to help their first and second generation children succeed in school and in life. Recognizing and respecting the changing demographics throughout the U.S., it offers a multicultural approach for all families. The FLI's primary objective is to teach parents and caregivers the art and skill of family leadership in support of academic achievement and life success. The FLI is a part of the Project Assets grant in the state of Nebraska. Project Assets, which stands for Accelerating Student Success for ELs through Scaffolded Support, is the result of a partnership with UCLA's Center for Research on Evaluation Standards and Student Testing, CREST, ELPA 21, and NDE. This innovative project provides a rigorous program of study over 18 months that prepares teachers to meet the diverse needs of multilingual learners. It encourages collaboration between educators as well as with students and their families. In order to recognize the value of collaboration and prioritize common planning time, NDE has created an elementary instructional planning guide that can be found on the NDE website and with the link on this slide. Here are some recommendations for a variety of participants and goals. For all staff, the goal may be to provide reflection, learning, and collaboration in the building. The recommendation would be meeting weekly or as needed. For teachers who share content or grade level teams, the goal may be to improve instruction and share best practices. The recommended frequency may be up to 90 minutes a week. For coaching partnerships, the goal may be to build relationships, improve instructional practices, and tailor needs that are individual and can be sustained over time. The recommended frequency may be biweekly or as needed. Finally, for vertical teams, the goal may be to explore standards, assessments, and resources used to align within content areas across grade levels. The recommended frequency may be biweekly, monthly, or quarterly. As with anything, These recommendations may be a starting point that districts use and then adjust to meet the needs and/or goals they want to address and achieve.
Another way to build the foundation for collaboration is by fostering shared leadership through intentional teaming structures. The strength of Nebraska MTSS comes from effectively engaging a variety of voices and perspectives to identify and support student needs. To do that, teams need to be set up effectively and they need to be able to work together. The Nebraska MTSS teaming structures displayed on the screen foster strong two-way communication with a natural flow when it comes to decision making. Teams should clarify the core beliefs upon which they share and set norms of collaboration around those beliefs that they can call each other back to in times of disagreement. Routines, roles, and the process through which data-driven decisions will be made should also be clarified. For more information on teaming structures, reach out to your Nebraska MTSS Regional Support Lead using the contact information found at the end of this webinar. We also want to emphasize that it's more than just establishing the teaming structures. It's also suggested to use a problem-solving model or approach to guide decision-making. From the community level to district and school teams leading continuous improvement efforts and strengthening Tier 1 core, to collaborative teams who are planning student supports, all the way down to the student level. Adopting and utilizing a problem-solving process is a great tool to foster collaboration, to strengthen database decision-making, and ultimately lead to improved student outcomes.
So let's talk about some strategies for collaboration. Student voice and choice is so important when discussing collaboration. Here are 5 examples of how that can be done. Asking for feedback, involving students as representatives, and creating space for students to share their ideas when making decisions about their learning. Students want to feel heard and appreciated when they get opportunities to share their thoughts and make choices. This visual on the right demonstrates how one might promote voice and choice and what logical steps could be taken to have higher engagement. As you think about the minimum levels, you can involve students as data sources by giving surveys. A basic level would have focus groups for student voice. At a mid-level, students are collaborators and can lead conferences. Finally, the highest level of student engagement involves students as leaders and on student advisory committees. Engaging students as partners helps them develop their sense of agency in their own education and as a part of their community. Cooperative learning is an instructional strategy in which students work in small structured groups to accomplish a goal. There are a number of benefits of cooperative learning, such as learning to collaborate with peers and working together to accomplish a task. In addition, cooperative learning helps students develop skills in oral communication and supports the development of social skills. While building confidence and promoting self-esteem, cooperative learning enhances student satisfaction with their learning experience and can lead to student improved achievements. Some examples of cooperative learning are listed here. Think, Pair, Share is an excellent strategy for multilingual learners because it gives all students the time to think. Students learning English need additional time to process because they are taking in information in English, making sense of it through the language or information they know, and then figuring out how to say it in English. When students share with a partner, they get to hear another's ideas, and they get to practice saying their ideas in a safe setting of just one other person. Then all the students can share because all students have had the opportunity to think on their own, share with one another, and then have the confidence to share with the whole group. Jigsaw is another excellent strategy because it divides the work. Instead of reading all of the passage, students take just one part of a passage and become an expert with others about their passage. They then get to share back with their group. This benefits multilingual learners because it chunks the material. Students just focus on one part with the collaboration of others, and then all the students in that group are equipped to share what they've learned with the larger group. Another one of my favorite cooperative learning strategies is give one, get one. Students write, or they can draw, one or two ideas about a topic. Students then find others to give their ideas and then get the ideas from them. This encourages speaking and listening. Students have to listen to each other and speak to each other about their ideas. It's also fun, and students get to participate. All of these cooperative learning strategies benefit multilingual learners because they encourage speaking and listening and collaboration. When teachers collaborate, good things happen. One example of teacher collaboration is co-teaching, and there are a few different models to consider when thinking about co-teaching. When teachers divide the class and teach the same content simultaneously, this is called parallel teaching. One advantage of this type of co-teaching is classroom management with smaller ratio of students. Another model is station teaching, in which students rotate and the teachers present different content or skill work to small groups. An advantage of this is to leverage each student's strengths, each teacher's strengths, and allow for more refined lessons with smaller numbers of students. Another model of co-teaching is alternative teaching. This is when one teacher has most of the students and the other teacher takes a small group for a more specialized lesson. This gives students in the smaller group an opportunity to catch up or gain skills maybe missed earlier. Finally, team teaching is the model that uses both teachers for direct instruction for the whole class at the same time. The advantage of this is that collaboration builds on the strengths of each teacher. Both teachers are seen as the teacher of the class, and students get the opportunity to observe them working together and modeling collaboration. There are lots of ways for teachers to collaborate. Co-teaching is just one of them. When it is done well, co-teaching can result in better instructional quality for all students, but it does require significant investment and planning.
There are a number of ways to increase family involvement and engagement. This slide shows 5 suggestions. Inviting families to participate in the decision-making process is a great way to increase engagement. It's also important to consider the way you're communicating with families. Surveying families at the beginning of the year about their preferred method of communication can be helpful. And it's also good to leverage a variety of tools like Class Dojo, Remind, Seesaw, Parent-Powered, Zoom, just to name a few. Another great tool schools can consider using is Transact Parent Notices, provided by the NDE to all districts in the state. Transact helps schools translate all of their district communications into a number of languages, meeting the requirement for communicating with families in a language they understand. There are additional resources at the end of these slides. It's imperative to ask families to share information about their child so that schools can plan the most meaningful supports for those children. Students and their families have untapped expertise and knowledge that can bring renewed relevancy and authenticity to their education. Finally, it's important to offer flexibility when it comes to family involvement and to offer a variety of options. Some examples might include home visits, or meeting with families in central community locations, providing options for helping both during and after school hours, and asking parents to recommend community organizations that the school could then collaborate with. Make it clear that any and all help, no matter how small the contribution, is valued. When thinking about funding, it's also helpful to remember that there are Title I funds available to support parent and family engagement, and that Title III funds include parents, families, and communities. Remembering that schools are nested within communities, we know that leveraging the entire community helps students and their families. Using that problem-solving model or process after conducting the needs assessment is helpful in creating an action plan based on data and to evaluate the success of your partnerships and projects. Some examples of schools and districts partnering with communities include hosting a community game night, starting a community store, reaching out to the Rotary or other clubs to help support students and their families, and offering adult literacy and language in partnership with local community colleges or literacy agencies. Any one of these is not greater than the other. Community partnerships work when they're bidirectional and mutually beneficial.
To review, throughout this webinar, we defined collaboration as a practical concept to enhance Tier 1 core and support the use of academic language. We reflected on the importance of collaboration for all students, especially multilingual learners, identified current practices to enhance collaboration, and shared collaboration strategies that you can employ at Tier 1 core immediately. Please feel free to contact any of us at NDE, Nebraska MTSS, or the Region 11 Comprehensive Center with any questions you may have using the URLs or the links on the screen. Thank you, and we hope you have a wonderful day.